Hey, this is Shane Servoss with Team Kelly Lang and Remax Gateway, and today on the real estate route, we are going to talk about how to get started in real estate and how to formulate your plan to buy your first property. So for background, I'm going to give a little bit of info regarding how I started and what my plan was, where things are going, and what I see in the future for myself. So to start, I was not always a real estate agent. I was the head baseball coach at Skagit Valley College. And from that point, I really started getting involved with education and learning about investing in real estate. At that point, I had not purchased a house yet, and that was my goal. So I really dove down basically the rabbit hole to see what opportunities and options that I had, because at that point, income was limited, and I had no idea what a lender was, what a mortgage was. And so I just started educating myself. So from there, I decided I just needed to jump in and do it. So I started looking around. I went to a lender. I got pre-qualified, and that is always the biggest first step because it will tell you exactly what you can afford and what your mortgage payment will be. It kind of just gives you a good idea of the exact type of property you'll be looking for. And also your strategy will depend on that. So I knew that I wanted to do something called house hacking. And for those of you that don't know what house hacking is, it's basically, it could be a single family property, it can be a duplex, it can be a triplex, whatever you see fit. All the way up to 4 units usually is what a conventional loan will allow you to purchase. So what you can do is if you buy a single family home, and I wish I would have done this at a much younger age, is I wish, if I could go back and do it again, I would have purchased as soon as I was able to. Granted, I didn't know if I could or not, so that's why talking to a lender is such an important thing, to be pre-approved and understand what you can qualify for or what you need to do in order to qualify for a loan. I basically wish I would have bought a house, rented out a few rooms to some friends because I was currently renting with friends anyways. And then that helps pay my mortgage while I'm living there in the same situation I would have been if I was renting with friends anyways. Some other options are the duplex, triplex, or fourplex option, where you're living in one unit. Maybe you don't want to live with anybody else, but you rent out the other units of the duplex or the triplex, and that helps supplement your mortgage payment so that instead of paying $3,000 to $35,000, maybe more per month, you're paying a fraction of that, whether that's half if you're in a duplex or a third if you're in a triplex. So what I did was just started putting the word out that I was looking for properties. I ended up finding a triplex. I ran the numbers and it worked for me. So I decided to take the dive and buy the triplex. And I also had a bit of an additional strategy on top of that, is I was okay with buying something that I knew needed some work. So the property, and maybe some of you have seen on Instagram recently, I'm currently re-siding the property, which is one of the bigger projects I've done so far. I was okay because I knew it was value add, and I knew it would take some money and some time, but I bought the property at a pretty good price. The rents exceeded my mortgage payment. So the type of loan that I used was an FHA loan. So that allows you to go as low as 3.5% down, but you do have to own or occupy the property for at least a year. So my plan was, and which I did, live in the property for a year, rent out the other units, and then once that year was up, because I didn't necessarily want to be there long term, I personally decided to go and rent a different house. After the year of owning the triplex, I rented out all the units and I decided to self-manage it just to learn how to become a landlord and how to manage a property. So as of right now, my current rents well exceed what I pay on a monthly basis. And so I'm able to either reinvest the excess money. What I did first was created a safety net of money, because there are repairs that will come up. Things break in the house. You want to make sure that you have that safety net to be able to fix those problems for your tenants. So I created a safety net, and then from there, I basically have the option of being able to use that excess money to now pay the rent in the current place I'm at, or I can use that money to invest in other areas or save it up to buy future properties. So that really worked for me, and I implemented a strategy, and I'm currently resiting it right now. We did some remodels in one of the units to increase the value. So it's a long-term play for me, and I plan to hold that property for a long time. I went the unique route of kind of buying an investment property before buying a primary home. And now I'm at a spot where I'm ready to buy a primary home that I want to be in for the next 5 to 10 years. So my strategy for that, and I'm in the same boat as pretty much all buyers out there, rates are on the high side compared to what they were a couple of years ago. Prices, they haven't come down much. They've actually gone up 3 to 5% in most places in Skagit and Island counties this year. So my goal is, and this is my personal strategy, so for those of you that are like, man, prices are high, interest rates are high, I just can't afford that payment, always go get pre-approved with a lender. That will tell you what your payment will be, what you can qualify for, and it gives you the general information that you need to formulate a plan. So from there, I know that, okay, rates are at mid-sixes right now. They're around 6.5%. I know that rates look like they will be trending down in the next 1 to 2 years. And I also know that active inventory is actually increasing. So active inventory, and I've talked about this in the past, is a lot different than new inventory. So new inventory is the amount of homes hitting the market like right now on a weekly basis. And new inventory is actually, it's pretty stagnant. It's not a lot right now. However, the inventory that's hitting the market is sitting on the market for a longer amount of time. So one thing I do as a current active buyer looking around in the market is I always look at days on market for each listing, because if there's a few houses that I'm interested in, I look at how long they've been on the market for. And the reason I do that is the longer a house sits on the market, generally more motivated a seller might be to either provide a seller credit, which is essentially saying, I will give you money from my proceeds to be able to buy your interest rate down, cover your closing cost, use for repairs, whatever that might be. So I have a strategy of looking at homes that are on the market at least 30 to 45 days, obviously a location that I want. I preferably also, once again, want a fixer because, and more on the cosmetic side, you know, maybe a 1970s, 1980s kitchen, old carpet, maybe wood paneling that can be replaced with drywall, things like that. So I know that if I move in, I'm okay with living in those conditions as long as the home's obviously livable, and then I can fix it up as I live there throughout the next 3 to 5 years to increase the value and hopefully get it at a better price than a turnkey property. So the main reason I look at days on market is because I know that obviously I want to buy that home for the best price, but at the same time, I want to be able to negotiate with the seller to ask for a seller credit, because what I can do is if I get a seller credit of $10,000 and interest rates are at 6.5%, I can use that $10,000, talk with my lender and say, hey, what can I do with this $10,000 to either temporarily or permanently buy down my interest rate? And what that does a lot of the time is it provides you a better monthly mortgage payment than even if you got the property for a little bit cheaper with no seller credit. So a good lender is going to talk with you. They're going to run the numbers with you. They'll put 2 scenarios or 3 scenarios side by side. And they'll say, hey, if you get a seller credit for this amount, we can buy your rate down at least for the first year by X amount, or we can do a permanent buy down. But at the same time, if rates are trending down, I think a temporary buy down, in my personal opinion, is the way I would go, because I know that after that 1 year, and I bought it down for 1 year, okay, well, now it's back to the rate I locked in. But if rates have trended down, I can look at refinancing into a permanently lower rate, which is probably the best move for a lot of people out there. Granted, there is some inherent risk because you don't know for sure that rates will come down, but you always got to keep up with market trends and take a look that way. So the moral of the story, and why I wanted to share my story and my plan, is because there are a lot of buyers on the sideline right now. They're either thinking that homes and prices are going to come crashing down, which I do not believe is the case, because although active inventory is coming up, we're still 30 to 35% below 2019 levels. And why I say 2019 is that was pre-pandemic. So the amount of homes for sale in 2019 was about 30% more than even what it is now. and there are a ton of buyers out there. So inventory has to exceed buyer demand for prices to come down, and we aren't currently seeing that. The second thing is buyers are waiting for interest rates to come down. Well, typically when interest rates come down, more buyers come in the market because there's better affordability, and then there's increased competition for homes. Increased competition for homes then means higher home prices generally. So for me, I'm okay with looking around when rates are on the high side and less buyers are interested. That tells me there's better deals to be had. And that also tells me that there's different strategies that I know personally to be able to temporarily buy that interest rate down until they really do permanently start coming down. My advice is keep an eye on the market, talk to somebody who knows what they're doing, talk to somebody who has been through it. And step number one is always go get pre-approved with a lender. I know great lenders, I have great recommendations, and I would be more than happy to share my insights with you and be able to help you set up a plan. So I hope that was helpful today. Thank you for checking out the real estate route, and I look forward to talking to you soon.